Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Honestly, Let's Talk. I'm your host, Todd Neslony, and each week I seek to bring you a different conversation over a variety of topics with some of my favorite people on the planet. We've had different conversations, whether it's over different forms of racism, whether it's over entrepreneurs, authors, educators, administrators, everything. This is not just an educator podcast, even though most of the time, that's who I have on because that's who I know people where I know them from. But today's conversation is a part 2 conversation because the very first episode of Honestly Let's Talk was about teaching during COVID-19, where we talked about the end of a school year, and it was right at the beginning of August where everybody was going back. Well, now we've all been back for a few weeks or months now, and I wanted to bring on some more educators from across the country to share their experiences about teaching during COVID-19. So without further ado, I'm going to let each one of them introduce who they are, what they teach, and where they're from. And we'll start with you, Ella.
All right. Hi, I am Ella Maya, and I am a 6th grade teacher in Phoenix, Arizona.
Amanda.
My name is Amanda Threet, and I teach middle school math in Belton, Texas.
Kevin.
Kevin Bradford. I'm in College Station, Texas at River Bend Elementary. I teach special education resource.
Tony.
What's up, everybody? Tony Jackson. I'm in Hackensack, New Jersey, and I teach 4th grade, so all those great subjects.
And last but definitely not least, Heather.
Hey there, I'm Heather Callis, and I teach 4th grade English Language Arts in Brenham, Texas.
So I am thrilled to bring all of you together to kind of dive into this conversation and kind of see where everybody is. And so the first thing I'd like to know is, we're, like I said at the beginning, we're a few weeks, if not months, into the school year here right now. And so my first question is, what have you found to be the hardest part? And while answering this, I'd love to know, too, have you been teaching virtually? Have you been doing a hybrid? Do you have kids in both places? Are you teaching completely in person? So I'd kind of like to know, how are you teaching? And then what have you found to be the hardest part? We'll go ahead and start with you, Tony.
So I've been teaching virtually. Our district has been virtual thus far, and the plan is that we'll go hybrid with some students coming in person in November 2nd. But I'll still be a virtual teacher at that point. And I think that the hardest part, it's been the expectation from, like, the external expectations coming from the district and sometimes coming from the school that things are supposed to look the same or stay the same in some sense when everything is different. And so I feel like as a teacher, I've had to do a lot of work unlearning and relearning and learning new things. And I feel like a lot of us teachers are doing that work on our own, or, like with colleagues or with folks on social, right? We're finding out those things. I think the hardest part has been having to do that and then, not having the same thing being done above us for me.
I can completely understand that. Amanda, you're teaching at a junior high. So what has the teaching been like for you? Have y'all been in person, a mix, and what have you found to be the hardest?
So we started about 2 weeks after our original start date. We were delayed start to the school year, and we started with giving students the option to come face-to-face or stay home and be a remote learner. And so parents had to fill out a survey and they wanted what their choice was for their student. And then we ended up with our campus having around 200 remote learners, and that would leave us with about 500 or so in person. And so as the school year has gone on, we've had several students transfer back to campus. They decided, okay, this remote learning is not for me. And now they're starting to come face to face. So we have more and more. I don't know the exact number of our remote learners now, but it's definitely under 200. The hardest thing has been having to provide the authentic learning experiences for both my students that are face to face and virtual. So I have to handle all of the students. And so I have to provide things that my students at home can do. So I'm recording myself teaching lessons so they can watch it in a video. and I'm creating all my lessons that I used to have, math manipulatives and matching activities with paper or partner work. We're having to revamp all of that. So it's completely digital, completely online for our face-to-face and for our virtual learners. So they get the same experience. And so we're not too close contact with the students.
So in other words, like I've heard from many, you're doing twice the work now and probably not feeling quite as successful as you have in the past. In addition to, now I can say this because Amanda's my cousin, just for everybody watching that doesn't know that. And just in case her sister Kayla's watching, I don't have favorites when it comes to cousins because Kayla always likes to pretend I do. But Amanda, you also are getting your master's in the midst of all of this as well. So there's a lot of educators right now who had already planned to go back and get their doctorate or their master's or additional learning. And that's now been compounded over on top of the additional workload. And you also have children at home that are young. And so I'm sure that has probably been a balancing act for you as well.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's all about time management. It was great in the spring when we were working from home and I could get my school work done and then do my grad school work. And I had all the time in the world, it felt like. And then we hit the ground running. We were thrown in the deep end. We were building the plane as we fly, all the little anomalies that are being said. But it's definitely been a time management thing, and I have to take care of school when I'm at school, and I have to take care of grad school when I'm at home, and make sure I keep those things separated as far as assignments go. There's other tasks that I've taken on at my school because of grad school, but there's never a dull moment.
Nope. Well, Kevin, you've got a unique role as you're a special education teacher. And so a lot of the work that you do is very hands-on, face-to-face, small group, and all kinds of things. And so how are y'all hybrid? Are you in person? And what's been the hardest thing for you?
So we started the year kind of like Amanda did. Parents had the option, and they still have an option, but we've had a large number of our students return to on-site learning. I started the year with 12 on-site special ed students and 11 virtual, and I only have 3 virtual students left. So, but one of the difficulties, in my opinion, has been convincing parents that the work this fall is very different than it was in the spring. In the spring, it was survival and just, nobody knew what we were doing. And so a lot of our virtual learners, I think, expected that same type of system this fall and realized pretty quick that, oh, wow, they expect a lot more of us now than they did previously. So that's been kind of, I guess it's been a good thing because a lot of our students have returned. I expected a lot of difficulties with the mask wearing because all of our students are required to wear masks the whole day. And all the videos this summer of kids dropping them in the toilet and trading them, that just didn't turn out like that. The expectation was you wear a mask and it hasn't been an issue. I mean,
good.
There's been some, pull it up on your nose occasionally, but I think there are enough breaks built in during the day. When we take students outside, they can take them off and things like that. It just hasn't been an issue. So
that's great to hear.
Positive. Yeah.
Well, I know, Heather, you are teaching some students virtually and some in person. And so what has that been like? And what have you found has been one of the hardest parts?
Well, we started about a week late, and like everybody else, the parents had a choice. They filled out a survey. I started with about 18 students online between my 2 classes, and I'm now down to 2. So they're slowly coming back. Our campus had about over 100, about 140, and we're down to 20, about 20 kids that are still online. So they're coming back. Again, kind of like Kevin said, the parents saw how much work it was, and the first day they started calling because it was a lot more than what they expected, and they were ready for them to come back. but the hardest thing for me, and Todd, you know this, I am all about relationships and building relationships with my kids. And that probably has been the hardest part, is having these kids that are out in cyberspace and, you know, trying to build relationships with them, as well as the kids face to face, because we don't get to interact with them as closely. And, you know, you have to sneak a hug if you're going to give them hugs. It's hard when they want to hug you and you feel like you can't do that. So that part's been a real challenge for me.
You know, I'm quite the hugger too when it comes to kids, and and that is one thing I've often thought about, is if I was still on a campus, that would be so heartbreaking for me to be like, oh, stop there, no, stay back, like we'll do air high five. I'm like, oh, that would hurt me every time to say that.
Yeah.
Well, you know, Ella, you've been completely virtual this year, and you know, Ella, you and I have talked a lot over the last months about relationship building, and I know you are so big on that. And so I can hearing Heather talk about, you know, that difficulty in connecting with some of her kids virtually, and then not getting to do all the things she wished she could do in person with them. What has it been like for you being virtual since, gosh, March?
It's been a lot, you know, but I think luckily we're in a K-8 school, so it's very family oriented. We have a lot of siblings. I didn't even realize until probably just a couple of weeks ago, and we started first week of August, that I have a lot of siblings and cousins. So I've known these kids and seen these kids over the years. So that's kind of helped a little bit. But I think the main thing has been just making sure that they know that they're seen. I want my students to know that they're seen, that they're heard, that they're respected, that they're valued. I've stopped fighting the camera, you know, turning on the camera thing a long time ago, because that is just what it is. But I do a daily check-in with them virtually. So they, you know, how are you feeling with my little Bitmoji? They can ask for a check-in with me personally. And I think that on top of all of the other, you know, the struggles, like I want to hug my kids. I'm a hugger. They can pick a high five, a hug, we make up handshakes, and like all of that connection that you build with those kids, especially sixth graders. That's that little weird, you know, area in there where you're like, yeah, you're still a kid, but you're also, I want to be my own person and I want to be an adult, but I don't know how to be an adult. So making those connections. And I think that has been probably the most challenging thing for me, is not building that personal relationship with them, but I'm noticing a bigger sense of community. Mm-hmm. There's just this stronger sense of community that I've not experienced so early in the year as I have this year. So that's like that silver lining that's kind of keeping me going.
See, and that's exactly, I'm glad you said that, because those are the exact things we have to find, those silver linings to be able to keep going. Otherwise, all the difficulties and frustrations can bring us down so quickly. As everybody who's an educator who's watching now knows how tough these last few months have been. No matter where you fall on the spectrum, no matter how you've been teaching, this has not been normal times in any way. And our workloads have increased no matter how you're instructing kids right now. But I know that even in times of struggle and in times of newness, we learn things unexpectedly, whether it's about ourselves, whether it's about our students, whether it's about teaching in general. And so I'd love to know if during these last 8 months, has there been anything that you've learned? Kevin?
Why do you start with me? Okay. So, yes. With all of the, I hate to call it restrictions, but all the guidelines for keeping kids safe and using the hand sanitizer, I never saw myself quite as being routine or structured. But that, after 29 years in education, has changed this year, because now we have a system where we enter the room, you get hand sanitizer, you go to your spot, and you stay in that spot the whole time that you're in my room. Each student has their own box of supplies and materials. I'm quite organized all of a sudden. It's weird because I'm used to teaching on the floor with kids moving around all the time, and that's been a challenge, but it also has, I guess, given me the perspective of that I can do something different. Even after all these years, I can manage to make it work and be successful with it. The other thing that I think I've struggled with, but I think it's been a success, is doing. Some of our kids have social skills time during the day, and my virtual learners, I have one at home that requires social skills, and so that has been really tough to try to create situations where he can have a learning moment virtually. A lot of times it's a lot has to do with interacting with peers, and that's been real tough, but we've worked out a system and it's been pretty good. So
Awesome. Ella, what about you?
I think I'm kind of going along with Kevin here with I am usually teaching all over the place. I'm not a structured person. I'm not the most organized teacher at all. And so this has made me like follow a schedule and do all of these things. And I think just finding your space in this reality has been the biggest thing for me, and finding that way to become productive. And I've said it before, where I'm focusing a lot on team building and conversations, because without all of that, without the trust, without the respect that they have, the content will come later, because they're not going to learn from me if they don't know that I trust them and respect them. And like I said, like I see them, but finding those things to have that organizational piece and follow those days, because we're online all day long from 8:45 to 3:15. We're literally online. We have our 30 minutes of live instruction, 30 minutes of independent work time where I can work with my students, and then we have a break, and then we start over with 30 minutes. And I want them to see that I want to keep this structure so that when we go back into the classroom, it's as smooth of a transition for them as it is for me. I don't want it to be this big old upheaval of, but we were only learning this much and only online this much. I want it to be as smooth of a transition, because the stress that they feel, I feel, and what I feel, they feel. So I want it to just, go. And I think our district has done a really good job of preparing for that seamless transition for when we do go back, because we still don't know when we're going to go back.
You said something there that I haven't even thought about, and that is, at some point, everybody's going to be back in person. And so that whole idea of that transition piece, like, and how for kids like yours, Ella, who probably will go the whole semester being virtual and then be in person, hopefully, that's a whole lot of, nervousness built in there, I'm sure, with, oh my gosh, we've been doing this thing, we've got a rhythm, and now we're switching it all up. And it's like a whole year, a new year without being a new year kind of thing.
Yeah, and they can't hide behind their notebooks.
Exactly.
They have no camera to turn off when we go back. So I make them turn on their camera when we come back from little breaks, just so that I see them. I'm like, all right, you're there. All right, cool. Do what you need to do. But, because they're not going to be able to hide. And I want them to feel comfortable to share and to speak and to talk and to know me. And I share my struggles. I'm like, I deleted this on accident. I'm sorry. I'm making mistakes, and they can make those mistakes too. And just making it be as real as it's going to be when we are in person.
That you made a great point. I think what our kids have learned very quickly now is that teachers make a lot of mistakes too. So that is okay. Well, Heather, what about you? What have you learned throughout this time?
Well, when I found out we were going back face to face and I would have virtual kids, I was really worried about how the kids would feel about coming into school. And parents indicated, the kids were actually worried. And so what I've learned is the kids are really resilient. They came in, and at first, they were really timid and kind of scared. And then they started to come out of their shells, and they realized it's okay. And they realized, there's space between the desks, and people wear their masks. And so, our kids are really resilient, and they really came back, and they enjoy being around their peers, and they really enjoy being back in school. And I enjoy that interaction with them. But then also there's the whole staff piece. And I've learned just how well we work together. Our school has a whole bunch of new staff members this year, some really young first-year teachers, and we're just all working together so wonderfully. We have our PLC time and our conference time. And everybody's just really coming together. It's not my job. I'm not going to do it. it's just everybody's coming together to make it work because we know this is the way it has to be right now. And so it's a real positive feeling right now at our campus, and I'm really happy about that.
I love that. Definitely one of those, in the midst of all the crazy, we always love those little good pieces. So I love that. Tony, what about you?
I'm learning so much every single day. I think one of the biggest pieces has been that I love creating content for them, and it's a real big love of mine to curate that and spark that in them. And I think that the more we create, and the more it becomes about a space where we can create and we appreciate what we're all contributing, the better it's going. Because what I've also learned is that it's so important for me. I love my job, and it's so important for me to love learning. It's so important for me to love challenges. It's so important for me to model all of that, especially now, because I'm pretty exuberant, right, in the classroom. And when I'm in there with them, you can feel that, right? There's something you feel when you're in person with the kids, and through a screen, it's very, very different. So I really, it really like sunk into me how much I need to show them how much I love learning, and in doing that, I'm having so much more fun. Now, don't get me wrong, it's not that every moment is like Disneyland, but I'm really enjoying, like when I write with my kids, oh my God, I'm so enjoying it. And I love what's coming out. I'm writing some of the best stuff that I've written, because we always write together. Shout out to my homie, Mr. B Poetry, who told me that. He was like, yeah, when the kids are writing, you got to write. When we're doing read alouds, like everything is great. And when they're home, they have all their stuff, right? When they're in school, they're like, they're captive, right? You got them there. When they're at home, it's like, look, there's their toys over here and all this stuff. So I'm the whole game. And when I can show them that it's not about me, it's about all the awesome stuff that we're learning, whether it's social studies, science, math, like, that's been helping me a lot. And as tough as everything is, it's really been helping me to really enjoy my craft.
Well, I talked to Amanda about balance. You've got an adorable little one as well that you've got to try to balance doing that and doing all your online. How has that balance been for you?
I mean, when we were doing when the pandemic hit first, and we were doing it back at the end of the year, or back around like March, it was crazy because doing it from home, she was home. And so she would just be like the star of every morning, or just be like, when is Jillian going to walk in? Like, all right, for math, what? You need a waffle? Okay, hold on one sec. And that was like every day. But now there's a little bit more. Now we don't have her back in school yet, but she's at the school of Nana and Gaga. And so she's learning every day. And, we're in school. So I'm teaching from school when I teach, even though I'm teaching virtually.
Okay.
So, so that's very different in that sense.
I love that. Amanda, what have you learned during this time?
So since we're having to put I teach math, and since we're having to put everything in a digital form for our students, we as the teachers have tried to put as many grade itself assignments as possible. Makes it a lot easier on us, but I have learned the amazing power of just immediate feedback to the student. So we've told them, hey, look, if you're not happy with your grade right away, do it again. And we give them multiple attempts, and the students will sit there and rework the assignment until they get 100, or some of them till they pass. But
Right.
Whatever makes them happy and their parents happy. And it's just created a stronger work ethic in the students, and giving them that immediate feedback of, hey, you don't have this down, do it again. It's always been our philosophy as a math department of, we want you to just keep working until you get mastery. Like, it's not about the grade that you make. Like, oh, sorry, you're stuck with a 72. Hey, if you're not happy with the 72, work it again, because it's only going to make you better. And so them getting that feedback right away, rather than turning in papers to me that then I have to grade and then I have to pass back to them, that has really kind of shifted the thought process going forward, and has really created a stronger work ethic in the students.
I love that. And I think about my own journey as a student. It was like I would have loved to have been in a math class because math was not easy for me, where I knew right away how I was doing and I could fix it and make it better and not have to feel like I was a failure just because I didn't get it right the first time. So I love the way that you shared that, Amanda. Well, there's a lot of educators who are going to be tuning into this, who are all over the spectrum, just like y'all, about whether they're in person, virtual, hybrid, whatever. I know you've seen and heard it and felt it yourselves too, the overwhelming feeling about there are great moments, there are huge successes, but there are those moments that hit you like, can I handle this? This workload is so much. I want it to go back to the way it was. Like there's all these conflicting emotions that happen throughout a day, no matter how you're teaching right now. And so the best way I'd love to end this conversation is some advice for people who are listening today. What have you found that has really worked for you, or something that some words of wisdom you would just like to share to those who are listening today? And so we will start with you, Heather.
Oh, yay. So I guess my advice would be to know that you're not alone, that every single educator feels the same exact way you do. You're crying one minute, you're laughing the next. It's just a roller coaster, and it's so tough. What I had to do, I might work till 6:30 or 7 every night, but I have to take a day for myself on the weekends, and I have to just unplug, get away, and go do something for myself. And I had to make myself do that. So I didn't feel guilty about it, but it was the only way that I knew I could be successful in the classroom, is by taking that time to, energize myself. And so I think it's really important that you give yourself permission to take time to do that and to take care of yourself and your family, and know that that's okay and that you're really doing it. It's helping your kids more.
Well, I love what you shared there, Heather, about feeling guilty about it, because I think there's so many educators who feel guilty if they don't get everything done on their list, or if they don't finish all the lesson plans or grade everything. But you said it just perfectly about taking that time for you and knowing that that's okay to do that. And you got to know when to do it and how much to do it for you that works. And so I love that you shared that. Thank you, Heather. What about you, Kevin?
I think my advice would be not to jump to conclusions too quickly. I think educators are real good at like hearing something and automatically thinking that that is truth, or that that's what's fixing to happen. And they get panicky and the anxiety goes up, and it turns out to, no, that's not how it is after all. So I think before you panic, before you think, it's the end of the world, just take a moment. Even if one of the things I've done this year is I'll see an email from our school, and I will just put it on pause for at least 4 hours before I ever look at it again. And by that time, a lot of other people have taken my panic and dealt with it. And I can come back and go, see, it wasn't so bad, was it?
I love that. That is perfect. And knowing you, Kevin, I can totally see you doing that, and that working really well for you. So I'm glad to hear that.
Sometimes it's 24 hours.
Whatever works, right? Well, Amanda, what about you? What advice do you have?
It is definitely strange. Like we talked about building relationships. When you don't shake their hand when they walk in, you give them sanitizer. And so all of that is just strange. And like they said earlier, my kids are also great about wearing their masks. We said they're great about wearing the mask better than they ever wore their ID lanyard around their neck. It's not a battle. So, but in spite of that, I would encourage you to still build relationships with your students. We talk through our mask, they can talk through their mask. So have those conversations with them, have them interact in class. I will ask a student a question and say, I'm so sorry, but I couldn't hear you. Would you please talk louder? And so the conversation is still able to happen about what they're thinking and how they're learning, and sharing that with the other students in the room.
I love that. All about communication and building those relationships. I love what you said. We don't give out high fives or handshakes anymore. We give out hand sanitizer. Just that image in my head. Ella, what about you?
I think, this is my 19th year of teaching, and I still feel this is the one year I've worked harder, and felt the least confident. Like I felt like a baby brand new teacher. So my heart goes out to those baby teachers that are just coming into this for the first time, having to like come in like this. It's a bonus for them because now they have this to, fall back on. But I think the main thing for me has been not to fall into that like rabbit hole of comparison. You can't compare yourself to another teacher who has these beautiful lesson plans and these beautiful things created. And it's like, what matters the most is those relationships and that community, that community building and knowing your students and creating a safe space for them, no matter whether it's online or in the classroom. And I think not comparing yourself. And that's really hard for me because I always strive to be better all the time. But right now I know that it's okay to not be okay. And my better is my best at that moment in that time. And that's okay. I'm doing the best that I can. I know my kids are doing the best that they can. And that's what matters right now is just don't compare yourself. You are doing the best that you can. And that's all that we can ask right now. Because this is not what we signed up for. This is not normal. This is what we're given. And this is what we have to work with. So make the best out of it.
That's right. That's great advice. So many little nuggets in there. So, Tony, as you close us out here, what advice would you give to the people who are listening or watching?
No pressure. I would say listen to the kids and talk to the families. I have been so blessed with the support that I've gotten from the families of my students. Especially considering what happened at the end of the year last year and even coming into this year. And so I have tried to make it a point to give them as much as I can of me, of course within reason, right? Of course considering that I have to take care of myself, but giving them as much support as I can. And letting them know as much as I can, because I know that they're going through something tough as well right now. And I have gotten amazing responses. And from my students, I'm listening to them, whether it's conversations, as some of you have said, surveys, I'm asking them what I can do better. I'm asking them what's working. I'm asking them what's not. I'm gauging their interest in things. And I'm doing that often. I'm doing that a lot. I feel like there's sometimes where it's more important that I know those pieces than that I give, whatever test I'm supposed to give. So I'm making sure to listen to the kids and construct everything that's happening around what's working best for them.
I love that. And one thing that has been clear through this conversation is that you five, regardless of circumstances, love kids, love teaching. And I know from the many educators I've been talking to during this time, I know they can all connect with that emotion of knowing that we got into this because we love pouring into kids and things are different. Things have really bright, shiny, silver lining moments and really difficult, why did I do this moments. But I so appreciate you five coming today and sharing a piece of your journey with my viewers and listeners. And I want to thank everybody for listening or watching another episode of Honestly, Let's Talk. You can join every Thursday live at 8 p.m. Central Standard Time, or check out the recording on YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, wherever you get your stuff. It's there. To my five guests today, thank you for the incredible work you're doing. And everybody, I hope you have a fantastic week.